Right, so hopefully we're recording the sound today because I can definitely see it happening. We are on the customer's final Cybernet 134 base radio. His Rotel RVC240 with a nicely faded box there. So, I'll just press some buttons here and we should be ready to open up. Oh, so he's got the original bill of sale here from Rumblow's. Just in case it is the original customer, we won't show the address. Rotel 240, £39.95. So that is really a clearance price, isn't it? Because these were $99.99 and it was 1983 January. So clear in the sale. Rumblow's were a Sheffield-based electronics, white goods, did rentals, all that kind of stuff. Had a big fire at their main branch at Sheffield. I lost all the Fidelity 1000 stock, but didn't seem to recover from that. Tell you what, we'll take that out of its out of its bag. Oh, that's really nice condition. Now, yesterday's 230 performance was absolutely astonishing, but I was surprised it didn't have the extra receive circuit, and we've now had comments to say, well, my 230 has. Well, there we go. So once again, we're going to do exactly the same, and we'll test it before we do anything else. We'll go for public address, we'll go for the test equipment speaker hookup, and we'll plug in the test equipment. There's a little dent there. We use our standard test mic, and then we'll worry about the factory mic when we come to the on-the-air test. I haven't forgotten we've got that 350 milliwatt PE Ranger to finish off. The parts have now come to do that, so we'll be able to do a bit of an on-the-air thing, well, not an on-the-air, a field test with that and get it back to the customer. So we'll power this up. There's no reason why it can't go straight on at 13.8 volts, 1.6 amps. So we want tone to high initially. That works the opposite way to what you expect. Normal, that, yes. Or just check PA. Test it. It's on. So it's on the mic gain on this one. Testing 1 2 3 4 5. 1 2 testing. And it's not coming out of anything like the extension speaker, so it's just coming out of the PA speaker. So that works again how you'd want it and expect it to. Go back to CB. So the test set's only been on 5 minutes, so what it says regarding frequency won't quite yet be spot on. It's half an hour stabilisation. So we'll use the same piece of paper, and we'll once again not write on the radio's lid like we normally would. TX. Let's look at this power. It's picture in picture on. I'll go for the 3 watt scale first. Just full scale deflection. 3 watts exactly. Deviation, wallow. It's a bit low. Frequency we'll take with a pinch of salt, but we will at least get a good idea whether it's anywhere near. 2779090 is okay. It wouldn't sound off frequency at that. course it should be 27.79125. So now we'll dial that into the signal generator, 2779090. That's near enough. So we'll set the signal generator to 1 microvolt, and we can hear that. Put the cyanide meter on, and we'll put that on camera. Adjust the attenuator. So we'll start with, remember we've got the tone on high. We're going to start with 4.4, 0.44 for 10 dB cyanide. Naught 0.57 for 12 dB cyanide, and finally, can we get it to do 20? Not all sets can ever do 20, it's just down to noise. 1.45 microvolts for 20 dB cyanide. Now we'll do all those again with the tone in the low position, which will actually make the thing better, because it's filtering some of the noise out. So for 10 dB, so that's high, this is low, I'll put tone. So we're now at 0.32 for 10, 0.39 for 12, 0.95 for 20. So there we are, that's where we got to. So I'll put that back to power. Just turn it off for a moment. We'll open the setup. Unclip the PA speaker, we don't need that plugged in anymore, having done that test. And onto the piece of polystyrene with that. So I can't see any modifications at this stage. It's had some work at some time. Okay, so we'll start with the VCO. I'll turn picture in picture off because it's not relevant. So with my best £16.99 Lidl multimeter and Mr. Chippy's green crocodile clip lead, so we're on channel 40, resistor 4, Now, there's no sign this has ever been tested because there's wax there. There we go. So it should be 4 volts on receive, or plus or minus 0.1. So that's absolutely spot on. That's the coil there. On transmit, it should be the same. That's out. So that should be 4. We'll adjust the trimmer for just that. That'll do nicely. 4 spot on. Back to receive, and it's still correct. Now channel 40, go to channel 1. Should be between 1.9 and 2.5 on receive, and on transmit between 1.8 and 2.5, and it is. So a little bit of adjustment there to the transmit VCO, and that's so important. You end up with channels dropping out when the weather isn't always 60 something degrees. A bit like a brand new Midland 78 Plus multi-works, even though you've done the VCO, with channels dropping out. Don't I know it? We've got 3 of the damn things. So here we go, picture in picture on. See if we can tune up the transmitter. 3.8 would be the minimum acceptable. So at the moment, I'll just check out. I'm doing it again. Set needs, of course, to be on channel 20. We'll just start all that again. Seems to be my flavour of the week, this. So we're now at 2.9 watts as it's warmed up. Oh right, that one was considerably out. So now we reach for the other set. So L4 for maximum. That one to maximum. That was at maximum. We're now at 4.2 watts. Now at 4.6 watts, which is good. Otherwise it may not balance properly. So I've got to go around several times to make sure we're at absolute peak, and that includes the final coil here. In fact, I may as well do the other 2 as well. Right, so we're at 4.8 watts. I say never be tempted, legality side, never be tempted to leave it up there. You'll A, kill the set, and B, it'll do probably 2 watts on the lower or higher channels than that. So we now reduce the power. The yellow L4, we now drop to 4.4 watts exactly. Remember, all this is done into a dummy load, and that's done clockwise. So it's clockwise to get 4.4 watts, and then L9 is anti-clockwise. They say to get 3.8 watts, but we are going for the full legal limit of 4. Remember, they have to get radios through customs. Nothing has changed. When you buy a new radio, chances are it does 2.7 watts and about 1.4 kilohertz deviation. The dealer is supposed to adjust them. The dealer doesn't, because people buy them at the cheapest price. I had the television business. We used to take new sets out of the box, set up all the voltages in the workshop, have them on soak test for 40 hours, then put them back on the box with PDI written on them, pre-delivery inspection. And I had a lady come in to the shop one day and she says, oh, I want one of those televisions, please. I said, well, actually, that one's just completed its soak test, so I'll put it back in the box for you. Oh, no, I want a new one. She didn't get what we were doing, so I gave her one straight out of the box. I bet it was crummy. But that's what people want. Sealed boxes and a cheap price. So we're at 4 watts. Let's just check. They want you to make sure it's within 0.1 watt on channel 14, channel 1, in other words at the band edges. 3.99 and 4.01. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to touch this one, the tiniest fraction. That's now spot on the 4. So we'll check channel 1. That's just, it's not even the needle width of being over 4. And on channel 20, it's spot on 4. So there we are. Not that 0.1 watt's going to do anything different, I can assure you. In fact, by the time you get to 2 watts, you won't find much range difference between there and 4. Right, we'll look at what the meter says. So remember, this is done with the dummy load. It will not read the same when it's on an aerial. So it's banging across to 5. That now reads spot on 4. You may connect it to an aerial and key up, might read 1, might bang across. You're still doing 4 watts. This is just relevant to SWR. Oh, now this test set's been on half an hour, we'll just check the frequency. Deviation. So we'll get our Korg chromatic tuner out, which we use as a tone source, set as a reference of A equaling 440, but the note is the second B in the octave, giving us just under 1 kilohertz. Cheap way to generate a sine wave, not to be confused with a guitar tuner. Let's go back to that meter, then we can see where we are with the deviation. So I want that to that position there, and I want that down a bit. Let's try it there. Wallow. Not a little bit more. Wallow, wallow. It's the tiniest fraction. See whether that'll do. Wallow. That's it. So it's an average of 2.2, rises to a peak of absolute maximum of 2.5. Done. Is low power working? Switching the radio test set to low power. Selecting -10 dog biscuits on there. It is. These tend to be dirty. I'll just give it a spray anyway. It's doing 50 milliwatts, so I don't know why that is. Now it's doing 400 milliwatts, which is where it should be. So let's put that away. We do have another Rotel 240 4 service, but I'll do another couple of sets first. You don't all want to see the same sets all the time. And I think there's another one in the post. There's a Harvard 420M in the post. All the same chassis, eh? Right, it goes like this. We had all those Maxon based ones with the Comtels, and we've had a few Unidens, and now it's Cybernet 134s. Okay. Well, I think that's done everything on the transmitter, so we'll turn our attention over to the receiver. So now we'll retune the signal generator for the proper frequency. That'll do nicely. We'll go over to the oscilloscope. Turn the bench light off, put a 100 microvolt signal on the signal generator, and adjust the volume so I've got a sensible trace. And we'll now adjust the detector core down here. Make sure it's at peak. No, it's not. Wow, that took some a bit of adjustment there. Good. Turn the oscilloscope off, put the bench light back on, and go over to the Cybernet meter. Well, I wasn't expecting that. So it's about 4 dB on the Cybernet meter, so we're not saturating the receiver. You've got the extra stage here in this set, but not the other extra stage which you get in base stations. Oh, is the squelch on? Yes, it was. We'll have to go down a step on the attenuator as we move through. So that one was spot on. That's spot on. Need a bigger signal for these. It's not liking that. I'm going to put an even bigger signal on. Back to a smaller signal. Back to a very small signal. And then we'll just go back to that very first one, which we had to do quite a lot to adjust. There we are. So let's read this off again. So adjust the attenuator. I'll go to a different scale so that it's the same scale I was on when I did the first test. So making sure we've got the tone in the high position. We have 0.31 microvolts. 0.39 microvolts. One microvolt. Now let's change the tone. Naught 0.23 microvolts. Naught 0.29 microvolts. Naught 0.75 microvolts. Okay, let's fold this out and see what we had on that Rotel 230 yesterday, which was phenomenal. So it was 0.28. So on this one it's 0.31. And on his 220 it was 0.29. So out of the three, this is the worst. Then on his 230, on for 12 dB, which is industry standard one, 0.33, 0.39 on this one, 0.39 on the Rotel 220. Then for 20 dB it was 0.95 microvolt. It's now 1 on this one, and it was 1 on that one. So his Rotel 230 has in fact won, hasn't it? But we've got 0.23, 0.23 with the tone on, 0.29, 0.28, 0.75, 0.7. That is just phenomenally, unusually good. Wow. So your Rotel 240 does not work any better. It might be a little bit better for bleed over. It's got that extra circuit in. But who's bothered about that? Well, I'm not bothered about that because I live in the middle of nowhere, where even a Fidelity 1000 is fantastic. So that's what we wanted to see. So I'm pleased about that. Right. So having done that, having done the hard bit, let's make sure that this is showing something like S9. So it's actually just under, so we'll just pop that to S9. Just like that, to make sure that RF gain's at 4, because it's easy to clonk them. And then we need to make just sure the squelch works. So we'll put this onto the attenuator. Just put it at 1 microvolt. Turn the squelch to 4. And then I want this squelch to open up when I get to 100 microvolts. So 3 microvolts, 10 microvolts, 30 microvolts, 100 microvolts, spot on. So had it not worked right, it would have been that preset. And do you know what? I don't think we've adjusted any of his sets. Oh, I think the new one I needed to adjust it, believe it or not. So now we'll do the opposite. I'm going to park the signal generator at 0.3 of a microvolt and switch it to standby. That's what the red light shows. Then on the radio, set threshold. Switch the signal generator back on and see when it comes in. It's coming at 0.65 of a microvolt. It's leaving at 0.58 of a microvolt. Now the squelch on his 230 wasn't quite as sensitive as that, but we did the on the air test. It was absolutely fine in reality. So that's now set up a treat. Very nice. He's got 3 nice sets there. So this, you get the 3-inch speaker, don't you, in this one? That's not the 3.5, I'm sure. Where's my tape measure? You know what? I'll go and get a tape measure. So it's 3 inches. So on the Binatone 5-star it's 3.5 inch, and it was on the Midland 76-900 base station. And it's also 3.5 inch on the Harvard 420M. So wouldn't you think that the flagship Rotel also had the 3.5 inch speaker? Wrong, it doesn't. Right, I'll screw this together and then we'll come back on with it connected to the aerial. So like his other two sets, this one's still got the plastic on the black maker's plate. 201128889 is the serial number. Put the tone to high and see whether there's any good or bad buddies or indifferent ones out there. "19 Roger."
Right, 5 people. We're all talking about valve radios and valve equipment and stuff. It was actually quite entertaining, quite a good convo. All UK stations, that's the best time really, because you can actually talk to somebody.
He sounds like he's over deviating slightly. "19 Roger." Okay, so there we are. We'll do an on-the-air test later on. And that's the third and final Cybernet 134 Rotels from this customer. You've seen the 220 in the sealed box, you've seen the 230, and now you've seen the 240. And it was the 230 that actually won the performance competition, because as I say, the 240 has that extra receive circuit and will be better for bleed over. Thanks for watching.